All right, good morning, everyone.
Good
Morning.
morning.
JD.
Right, good morning. So, welcome to the National Museum of the Philippines lecture for today, which is entitled Women in the Field of Botany. So, to start our program, may I ask Miss Catherine Enriquez to lead us to a short prayer.
Okay. Let us bow our heads and place ourselves in the presence of the Lord. Heavenly Father, we come to you in confidence, asking for your blessings and graces as we are gathered here today in this webinar. We come to you during this time when lives everywhere are threatened and disrupted at every level. We pray for the thousands of people who have already lost their lives to this virus. We pray for their grieving loved ones. We pray for the doctors and nurses who daily are working long hours and risking their lives to help people infected with this virus. We pray for the protection of all those who continue to serve us at this time. We also pray for every government officials at the local and national levels, especially our agency, the National Museum of the Philippines, that we will have the guidance of the Holy Spirit to know how to properly balance the safety of us all, even though we are currently close to the public. May you guide all of our ongoing and upcoming activities, including this webinar, to provide new knowledge to everyone, and may we learn new ways together. We pray for ourselves that we will do what we need to do to protect ourselves and others from this disease. We pray that we will be ready and willing to help others in whatever way we can. May this time of a new normal help us to grow in our appreciation of the things we may take for granted. We pray for the fast discovery of a vaccine to fight this terrible virus for this pandemic to come to an end. In Jesus' name, amen.
All right. So, welcome everyone in our activity for today. So, as the National Museum actually readjusted our activities for the new normal, so the Botany and National Herbarium Division, in coordination with the Gender and Development Focal Point System, welcomes you all here in our lecture, Women in the Field of Botany. So this is also in line with our celebration of the Museum and Galleries Month for the month of October. So we will give you highlights of the journey of our distinct speakers, which are women botanists who actually excelled in success, who have successes in their own respective fields. And we aim that this activity or this event will inspire students as well as young career researchers in providing path towards biodiversity studies as we need it in this time of pandemic and climate change. So we hope that this activity will eventually be of aid towards our role to actually promote biodiversity studies for our future generation. All right, to formally begin our activity, I would like to call on our Deputy Director General, Dr. Ana Maria Teresa Labrador, to give us the opening remarks.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to this forum on women in the field of botany. We're very happy to have you all, and especially warm welcome to our speakers this morning, Dr. Teresita Perez, Dr. Cecilia Banag Moran, and Dr. Rosario Rubite. So it's a really good timing to have this particular webinar because what we have not really accounted for at the moment is the impact of the pandemic on our natural resources, our environment, and the biodiversity. And I think it's also important because we cannot go out in the field, but we could probably start thinking, what this impact is. We have, of course, seen online this talk about plant extraction and poaching. So, as members of the public has turned to, the quarantine public turned into gardeners or wannabe plantitos and plantitas. So, so that's been a really difficult also time for a lot of our government agencies, even the tourism department, to keep track of the extraction that's been happening in some of the natural parks, no? So anyway, so the National Museum of Natural History has really gained a lot of strength through our staff who have initiated meetings like this, and we congratulate them for this opportunity to make the knowledge of our experts known. We, of course, have, besides the Botany National Herbarium Division, we have the Geology and Paleontology Division, and also the Zoology Division, which is the oldest among the three. We want to keep strengthening this. We also, with the help of our partners in the academe and also in other museums, we want to use this opportunity while we are quarantined or not in the field, to actually focus on our own collections, and then how to manage them better, how to write about them, produce more publications. So it's a good opportunity for us to do this, and we aim to actually put out more natural history exhibitions in our regional and off-site museums. We started before the pandemic. We had opened one in National Museum in Bohol in June 12 last year. And what we you could expect is that we'll have one in our new facility in Dumaguete, and also in Western Visayas. So that's all programmed, and also Bicol and Butuan. So we hope that you could share in this program and let us know what else we must do moving forward, and your contribution to make our work more meaningful for you would be very much welcome. So thank you very much and have a wonderful webinar.
Right. Thank you, ma'am, for that inspiring message. So, all right. So, we will give you some reminders since we actually missed you having here in our actual buildings and museums. So for this online activity, we'll just have some house rules for our participants. So first thing, to avoid lagging of connections to others who are participating, may we ask you while the speakers are actually having their presentation to turn off your videos and your audio. Right? And if you have questions during the discussion, please put them all in the chat box and maximize the use of uh, having your questions there. We will be having the open forum once all of our speakers are actually done with their presentations. All right? Okay. What else? At the end of our at the end of the lecture, the Museum Services Division will actually provide us with the link where the evaluation will actually um, be clicked so that you can have it filled online. Okay, so for those who may need their certificates, you need the evaluation form to actually do that. All right. So again, welcome to our activity for today. So I know that we are all eager now to listen to the talks of our distinct speakers. So let me start with the introduction to our first speaker. Okay. Our first speaker is Dr. Teresita Perez. She is a research faculty in the Department of Environmental Science, Institute of Biology at the Ateneo de Manila University. She is also working as a professional lecturer in the University of the Philippines, Lima. Dr. Perez had her PhD in biology in the University of the Philippines and had her postdoctoral training in University of Hamburg in Germany. Right? She has written a lot of research publications, which actually mainly on bioremediation, limnological works, phytoplankton composition and diversity, and water quality assessment as such. She had been mentors to a lot of undergraduates and graduate students. Some have worked on the Seven Lakes in San Pablo City in Laguna. She's also part of the review committee of the Environmental Impact Assessment of the DNR Environmental Management Bureau and the current program leader in Lake Research Program in the Seven Lakes in San Pablo City. Dr. Perez is actually interested in focusing her researches in bioremediation, limnology, tropical ecology, phycology, environmental impact, and um, water quality assessment. Okay, so to give us her inspiring talk, let's welcome our first speaker, Dr. Tess Perez. Hi, ma'am.
Hi, good morning.
All right, can you all see the screen po?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Okay, so good morning, everyone. It is an honor to be one of the speakers in this webinar, Women in Botany, sponsored by the National Museum of the Philippines. Next slide, please. Women hold up half the sky. This is one of the sayings of a famous philosopher in Asia. And take note of the population pyramid of our country, where we have 1:1 ratio of men and women. Take note of the colors of the blue and pink in the pyramid with 1:1 ratio as mentioned earlier, and the age range where women contribute to the economy during her productive years. The XX part of the population play an important role in shaping the Philippine society. Next slide, please. So how did I start my career as a biologist? Well, at home, we had a big yard. We were climbing trees. I was tasked to I was tasked to pick the ripe bananas, santol, and guavas and share them to my siblings. That time, when my mom is sleeping, we would sneak out of the gate and go to the river. And well, the rivers were still clean that time and catch guppies and play around with them. Of course, I was not still aware that they should not die. And in grade school, there was the Girl Scout movement where I was very active and I attend the campings, we do cookouts, we would observe the sky in the evening, the stars, as well as the movement of the animals. Later in my secondary school, well, I had a very strict teacher in biology. I was so afraid, but then it was a challenge. We also had an intern from UP, from the College of Education, who was guiding us in our biology subject. He used to bring us to UP Diliman, particularly in the Department of Botany, where I'm connected now, the Institute of Biology. And we would listen to the seminars. And of course, would be very happy taking the snacks provided to the audience. I was also involved in the Girl Scout movement, which further honed my interest in nature. Later, I passed the UPCAT and took up BS biology. Uh, in my undergrad years, I was exposed to the first quarter storm. I was very observant and reading some of the pamphlets given to me. And I had my role models that time, like Lorena Barros, who is one of the members of the Women's Liberation Movement. Of course, we had history, considering Gabriela Silang, and Gregoria de Jesus, the wife of Andres Bonifacio. All of these women struggled for the independence of our country. I took up botany as my minor. Maybe it was an inspiration from my father, who was very good. He was very good in handling plants, the fruit trees, the ornamentals in the house. When I graduated, I applied as research assistant to Dr. Gregorio Velasquez. He was already a professor emeritus, but I didn't know that he's very famous. So he was a disciplinarian and would come to the office very early. So I really had to run so that I will be able to open the office. So I decided that I have to go on with my career, took up MS, and that time there was a visiting professor, a German professor, who offered marine geology as an elective. So I was so excited because I got a high grade in PE, in swimming. I got a 1. So I said maybe I can do scuba diving also. So the professor had sets of gears for us to be able to use. But then Dr. Velasquez told me, oh, babae ka, that would be difficult carrying the tanks. And then you're going to expose your legs. Well, it's a bit traditional. But so he said, you focus on freshwater ecosystems and your organism should be algae. I will train you. So I continued my MS degree. And then at a certain point, I decided to apply in UP Baguio, where in that area, I pursued my thesis, which was a survey of the microalgae of the freshwater ecosystem and its vicinity. So next slide, please. So this is Dr. Velasquez. He's the father of phycology of the Philippines. He's also a national scientist, and he focused on the blue-green algae of the Philippines. You know, these drawings at the right, these are all camera lucida drawings. He actually trained me to do camera lucida. No attachment cameras that time, the high-tech ones. So this actually needs focus and patience. So it's actually the camera lucida is a set of lenses attached to the microscope. And when you look at the eyepiece, you'll be able to see the tip of the pencil, and you can actually draw. You can actually draw these organisms. So that's what I got from Dr. Velasquez. He said that even if you're not really cum laude or summa cum laude, what's important is patience, tiyaga, and try to mingle with people. Next slide, please. So I continued my career as an instructor in the Diliman campus. I enrolled in the PhD program, but then of course I started also my family. So being a full-time instructor, raising your 2 kids, and doing your PhD was a big challenge to me. So this is my family. My husband also was very busy with his residency in PGH. So we were both focused on our career together with raising our children. So let me quote what Pope Francis said. Women have much to tell us. Women are capable of seeing things in a different angle. Women can pose questions that that we men cannot understand. So later, there was a DOST scholarship sandwich program, and I was able to get a slot in the University of Ghent. Next slide, please. So actually, I also worked on microalgae, uh, marine microalgae, Phaeodactylum tricornutum, and Skeletonema costatum. So I was exposing them to different levels of heavy metals, and this actually exposed me to the international global issues, particularly on the pollution, water quality, or even of the air quality globally. So finishing my PhD, continued my work in the Institute of Biology in Diliman, getting some promotions and administrative work. I decided to apply for a postdoc in the University of Hamburg. My professor gave me also microalgae. It was Chlorella sophingensis. When you stress Chlorella sophingensis, it will actually form cysts and will produce lipids. So I actually played around with it and exposed them to various uh, concentrations of heavy metals. So up to my postdoc, I've been working on microalgae. Next, please. So some of the other researches I've done, just highlights. So we have the Bulacan River systems with its water quality, Taal Lake research, phytoremediation, biofuel research, and spirulina research. Next, please. So this was actually done a long time ago, and the funds were managed by the NSRI, National Research in National Research National Science Research Institute. I'm sorry, Dr. Windel. And this was funds coming from the DNR. So we were tasked to work on phytoplankton, zooplankton, benthic organisms. Our team leader was Professor Mamaril. We actually collected water samples for water quality assessment, turned them over to NSRI and the chemists of the department, Institute of Chemistry. We also got water samples for microbiological studies. Well, this was actually an exposure with respect to the water quality of the Bulacan River systems. Uh, so there were actually agricultural fields, there was industries along the river systems. The Bulacan River system is very complex, and this would end up via Pampanga River and would contribute significant poor water quality to Manila Bay. So of course, that time, the impacts of pollution coming from point and non-point sources was not that a problem yet. Next slide, please. And coming from the field, kahit babae ka, you will have to clean the boat because of mud and all the oil and grease coming from the river system. But that's part of the work. So towards the afternoon, I would hurry up and go home to check on my children. And then later we had the Taal Lake research. This was funded by the European community with partners from Thailand, Sri Lanka, and European counterparts were coming from the University of Vienna, from the Netherlands, from London, and we had several publications, and this is one of them. Next slide, please. So this is another publication. That was one in Taal. The main author is Miss Hilario. And again, this would show you the impacts of the water quality, poor water quality coming from the river systems, particularly coming from the highlands of Tagaytay, Balete River, Laurel River, plus the inputs of the aquaculture, where it's a reality that there's excessive feeding taking place. That can actually add to the process of eutrophication of the lake. Next slide, please. But of course, you have to remember that Taal Lake is now a protected area or landscape, and that aquaculture is controlled. This is another output, planktonic centric diatoms from a volcanic Lake Taal. So we focus on the diatoms together with Eugen Roth from the University of Innsbruck. Is very patient with me in teaching me how to do identification of the centric diatoms. Dr. Evangelista know how difficult it is to do taxonomy of the diatoms. Next slide, please. So there's another lake, Lake Buhi. This is famous for Of course, the smallest commercial fish of the world, Mystictis luzonensis, which is endemic also in the Philippines. So phytoplankton composition and diversity was studied in relation to the different land use. So take note of the 6, 7 sampling sites with different land uses. Next slide, please. And later, we went to the 7 lakes and focused on Lake Palakpakin. So, of course, the lakes is a common resource for the lakeshore community, as well as the other stakeholders. Aside from doing scientific work, which is actually a field area for undergrad and graduate students, of course, community engagement and empowerment is very important. They have to receive you in the area, and regular communication with them is very important. Next slide, please. So we had actually, next slide, please. So we had a publication on towards a web-based decision system for Philippine lakes using UAV imaging and water quality wireless network. So water quality was an issue. Lake Palakpakin has 2 inlet rivers. Has 1 inlet. But the inlet would come from 2 lakes, from Lake Calibato and Lake Pandin. So can you imagine the water quality coming from the 2 lakes going into Lake Palakpakin, as well as the contribution of the decaying food of the fed to the tilapia, and also the lakeshore community. Next slide, please. So the photo actually shows the aerial imaging. Next slide, please. Next slide. The initial photo shows actually the Lake Palakpakin with the fish cages, the fish pens, as well as the density of the population in Lake Palakpakin. So this is also an aerial photo done by our partner Sky Eye of Ateneo of Lake Sampaloc. So take note of the density, as well as the one of Lake Pandin and Yambo, which are considered twin lakes. So Mang Pando, our partner from the Pharmacy Association, the Fisher Folk, actually the map that we printed is a guide to be able to pinpoint the fish pens and which are registered and not registered. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. And these are some of our publications. One is on the integrated management of a shallow tropical lake, considering the phytoplankton, water quality, sediment geochemistry. Next slide, please. And in the lake, we also have a collaboration with the German Research Institute, where they studied the occurrence and biodegradation of selected pollutants found in the 7 lakes. So we had graduate students together with an undergrad student from Germany who actually work in the area. So you have a table of all the pollutants from Lake Palakpakin, Pandin, and Sampaloc. At the left side would be images of students measuring water quality and bringing back the samples in the lab for analysis. And at the right side of the slide would show you the bathymetry. So one of our geologists, Dr. Claveria, together with his student, worked on the bathymetry of Lake Palakpakin. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. I had a grad student from the University of Sheffield. In fact, there were about like 8 who did their MS thesis in the area. And this is one of them, a very good student who was immersed in the lake, lived in the lake for 1.5 months. And he knew what was happening for 24 hours. And of course, he's now doing his PhD in Sheffield. And he actually made a poster and presented these to the Laguna Lake Development Authority. Next slide, please. On phytoremediation, this was funded by the DOST. We worked in the area for about 5 years in collaboration with other institutions such as UP Los Baños through Dr. Edwino Fernando and De La Salle University with Dr. Maribel Agoo. We focus on copper and arsenic recovery as a post-mining activity using indigenous plant hyperaccumulators. Next slide, please. In this work, we actually had a connection with Dr. Doronila, which became a balik scientist twice in the area. He's a good friend of Dr. Ana Labrador, and he actually guided us with respect to our work in metallophytes and bioremediation. So this slide would show you the metallophytes that we have observed. And what are metallophytes? These are actually plants that can survive in soils with poor nutrient as well as with very acidic soils. So the photo below would show you the graph of the amount of metals, copper in the soil as well as in the plant. And this is in an area of a small scale miners in Kias, Benguet. Next slide, please. We also worked with mining companies aside from the small scale miners. This is in Surigao area, Manila Mining. We also collaborated with Xavier University in Cagayan de Oro, where we built a nursery, plant nursery, where plants coming from the field, from the mining sites, small scale mining areas, mining companies would be propagated in the area. Next slide, please. So these are just photos. So we were doing field work. This is some are in Lepanto, Benguet. And then the photo at the center, upper part would show Ipunan River in Misamis Oriental. And we saw a lot of very poor miners. They were panning gold, and is a family activity. And the three tailings pond, they have different colors. Can be red or blue or green, where the waste are actually dumped. And you never know that this can break, considering harsh typhoons or even earthquake that can actually wipe out the community downstream. Next, please. Next slide, please. So you also observe acid mine. And the one to the right part of the slide, I saw filamentous algae as well as diatoms that are happily coexisting with an acidic water of about 3 or 4. And going downstream, you would see typha, lots of species of cyperus with their reproductive structures. And further down would drain into the mine tailings pond. At the right side is a fern named Teres melanocaulon. And this is potential with respect to bioremediation. Next slide, please. So further photos, this is in Lepanto at the left. We had a grad student from France who actually worked with us in Mindanao, although it's a no-no for them to go to Mindanao, but he insisted. And he is now doing his PhD in Borneo for nickel hyperaccumulators. Some of our students working in the plant nursery. Next slide, please. So these are some of our publications. Next slide, please. And more publications to come. If you notice, Dr. Doronila is always a co-author because he had been working with us and guiding us for about a few years, until we had our own publications. And the star of the publication, next slide please, would be the Teres Melano Caulon, because this is a new record for copper, for arsenic hyperaccumulator, as well as an accumulator of copper in the roots. Next slide, please. So, as of course a phycologist, I have to work on my organisms. And this was partly funded by the UST. Next slide, please. For us to be able to produce biofuel coming from microalgae. So I worked on several species, tested them for the potential for biofuel, chlorella, its various strains, chlorococcum, well, partly spirulina. And later, uh, the former senator, he's still a senator, Francis, what's his surname? Even visited me and asked the potential of the algae a source of biofuel. But of course, there will be some issues with respect to food security because the chlorella, the spirulina, would be important to support our livestock production also. Senator Francis Pangilinan. At a certain point, Senator Angara, the old one, the old senator who died last year, also supported us in this research. Next slide, please. We had industry partners who until now is really doing a lot of work on mass production of microalgae, marine and freshwater, to be able to produce biofuel. They also produce microalgae as feed for aquaculture. Next slide, please. So, yeah, I forgot the spirulina project. Lately, I had my work with Dr. Armin Coronado of the PUP, and we were working on mass production of spirulina, a good source of protein, and we have processed this and made some drinks which will be given to the children of public schools in Quezon City. Dietitian member of the research team also made biscuits coated with spirulina to enhance the protein content of the malnourished children. Well, now, what's keeping me active? I'm an active member of the Philippine Society for Freshwater Science. JD Pascual is also an active officer of the society. And of course, we have the Phycological Society. This was a long time ago. This was in Los Baños. I think it was the fourth. It was the fourth scientific meeting with Dr. Lee from Korea, who was our guest speaker. Dr. Tito Evangelista is somewhere in the photo. And how do we go forward? We have issues of climate change. We have experienced extreme weather events. We have strong typhoons. Sometimes there can be drought. And this is actually affecting our ecosystem. This is also affecting the poorest 20% of the population of the Philippines. We have several environmental issues, sometimes not checked by government, considering the mitigating measures. We have been given gifts by God as scientists, and I think we have to pursue our responsibility. Padayon Women in Science. Next slide, please. Thank you very much for your kind attention. Stay safe and keep healthy, everyone. Goodbye. Thank you.
Alright, thank you, ma'am, for that inspiring journey towards how you actually be in your field right now. It truly inspires us, even me, as a young researcher who works with various organisms, so plankton, phytoplankton now. It's really quite a difficult endeavor to go into this kind of field because we actually need the support of the government in doing such things. So yeah, I hope most of our participants here are also inspired by your journey towards what we are actually working now with bioremediation and microalgal studies in the Philippines. All right, thank you. So to proceed with our um, next speaker, I will just read some introduction for Ma'am Ses, right? Dr. Cecilia Banag is an associate professor. Sorry, it's a professor in the Department of Biological Sciences, College of Science, University of Santo Tomas. She is currently the curator of the University of Santo Tomas Herbarium and a resident researcher in the Research Center for the Natural and Applied Sciences. Ma'am Ses actually had her PhD in the University of Beirut, Germany in 2014, and she come up with a lot of publications that notes several more than 5 or 10 endemic Isauria species in the Philippines. Um, she also works in various assessment of floral diversity in various parts of the Philippines. Most of her ongoing projects includes inventory and biological survey of flora and fauna, now in Del Carmen, Siargao Island. She also works now in population genetics and conservation of Philippine endemic plants and have some project in biodiversity and ecological research in Angat Watershed Reservation. And she's currently also doing ethnobotanical study on Philippine pandanus. All right. So without further ado, let us now listen to the journey of our next speaker, Dr. Ces Moran.
Yes, good morning, JD. Can you share my presentation?
Sige po. All right. Kita po ba?
Okay, so good morning, everyone.
Morning, ma'am. You can control your PowerPoint po in your screen. I have given the access.
Okay, so first of all, I would like to thank the National Museum of the Philippines and Botany and National Herbarium Division for inviting me um, to be one of the speakers in this lecture series. Also, thank you to Dr. Tito Evangelista and to JD and to all the people behind this event for organizing this lecture series. And also, in the next slides of my presentation, I will be sharing with you my journey as a woman in the field of botany and share with you some of our researches in UST and with other collaborators. Um, I would like to share that while I was preparing this presentation and gathering pictures of my presentation, um, I'm just happy because it was also a sort of reminiscing because uh, I had to recall what I went through and remembering the people that I've worked with. Now, being a botanist here in the Philippines is both exciting and full of opportunities and adventures. And although it entails a lot of challenges, there are also lots of opportunities and rewards in studying our local flora. And this is an account of my journey as a botanist as I share some of our um, achievements and challenges, okay, together with my students and how we ended up loving and enjoying more our passion for studying our Philippine flora. Okay. Next slide, please. Are you controlling the presentation or lady?
You can
Next.
control it, ma'am.
Ah, ayaw siyang mag-move. Yan. Okay. Now, this or during this pandemic, suddenly people become plantitos and plantitas. Okay, and so let me join the hype and I will not be selling plants that I have planted or propagators of plantita to share with you my journey as a certified Filipino botanist or a certified plantita in our country. Yes. So let me start with the letter P, pursuing my dreams of taking up graduate studies. Okay, so my being a botanist started when I decided to pursue my master's and PhD and worked with plants. And this has opened so many doors of opportunities for me up to this day. Now, the upper picture in the presentation is the campus of the University of Bayreuth, which has literally become my second home, where I have stayed from morning till evening doing experiments and studying hundreds of herbarium specimens. Now, the picture below is the moment after my oral defense. So may why na, pasado na yan. So this is my advisor, Dr. Sigrid, and also my panel members during the defense. I'm wearing my academic cap. Okay, this was designed or made by my advisor. Yung color red dyan sa picture was actually to represent the plant I studied, yung Ixora, although mukha na siyang lantang Ixora when I when I was asked to wear the hat. Next slide, please. Yes. So my love for research is one of the reasons why or is one of my JD, can you do the controlling of the PowerPoint? Seems that nagwawala siya. It's jumping on the next
Sige, ma'am. Sige po.
slide. Okay, thank you. Okay, so love for research is one of the reasons why I've been having some publications. Okay, yes, isa po ako sa mga hashtag value na research. Although I don't usually do it alone, I also love doing it with my collaborators inside and outside of Santo Tomas. And these are some of the publications that result, the outputs at hand. Hindi dapat mawala yan. So sabi nga nila, publish or perish. So doon tayo sa publish. So kahit na gagal or how long we finish the research, it's important that we still publish our work. Okay, and these are some of the papers that I have co-authored with my students, my collaborators, and my advisors. So I have just chosen the most recent papers that we have published so far. Next slide, please. So let me just briefly share with you the most recent project. I worked with also several collaborators and officers of the NRCP Division 5 officers. This study, the assessment, inventory, and biological field surveys of flora and fauna of the mangrove forest in the Carmen Siargao Island. This study was funded by the DOST and RCP, and we have several partners in this project, including the LGU from Del Carmen Siargao, um, both government and non-government organizations, and other academic institutions. Now, the results of this project will be used by the LGU of Del Carmen for their application for the declaration of the mangrove forests of Del Carmen Siargao as one of the Ramsar sites in the Philippines. So we are preparing our output, the results of our study, to be forward or to be shared with the LGU. Next slide, please. Now, so aside from the plants, we also documented the amphibians, the reptiles, mammals, birds, um, and marine fishes and crustaceans in 11 barangays of the Carmen Siargao. So we are still finalizing the outputs of this study, and hopefully we'll be able to share with you soon the publications of this study. Next slide, please. For the flora, the study reported approximately 1,988 taxa from 50 families, 89 genera, and 113 species. There were 27 new records in Siargao and 5 for Mindanao. The family Rhizophoracea, the mangroves, it was the dominant family, contributing to 47.7% of the total individuals that were collected. And also there were um, 14 endemic plant species that was documented. Okay, for vulnerable species, for endangered species, and 2 other threatened species as well. Next slide, please. So let me just share some of the photos of the endemic species that were documented in Del Carmen Siargao: Hoya pubicalix, Cavea brevipes, Dendrobium species, uh, Lochidion ardisia scamulosa, Mercine mindanaensis, and Caesaria fulignosa. Okay, so these are some of the photos. Next slide, please. Okay, we have Artocarpus, Timonius philippinensis, Ixora macrophylla, Discidia platyphylla, and Dendrobium secundum. Okay, and then here are the threatened species that were also um, documented to be present in only in Del Carmen, one of the municipalities in Siargao Island. So this will also be included in the report when for the application of Del Carmen as a Ramsar site in the Philippines. Okay, next slide, please. Now this study, another study, um, this time this is a CHED Dare 2 funded project during their K to 12 project of CHED. We applied for program to study the different species of pandan. So this was led by the pandan queen herself, Dr. Maribel Nanato, and this is one of the studies under the program, the ethnobotanical uses of Pandanaceae species in selected rural communities in the Philippines. So this, I was the project leader for this study, and we were able to explore the ethnobotanical uses of some species of Pandanaceae. Originally, we are only focusing only on the members of the Pandan genus. However, as we um, proceeded with the project, when we conducted the fieldworks and the interviews, apparently people would only refer to plants kahit na hindi siya pandan or under the genus pandan, they would still include that in the interview. So the study now widened into the family Pandanaceae. So the results of this study suggest a good transfer and dispersal of traditional knowledge within the members of the respective communities that we visited, and with females and elder informants generally displaying a rather extensive plant knowledge as compared to men. Okay, then sa mga areas that we have included in our study. And also we documented some uses of the members of Pandanaceae, and the most medicinal Pandanaceae that was documented and used to treat the urinary tract infection, yung mga species of Pandanaceae. Okay. Also, my journey as a botanist would have been more difficult if not for the people who have been instrumental, who have helped me in my endeavors. So I would say that I have been admiring the giants. So as Isaac Newton said, if I've seen further than others, it is by standing upon the shoulders of giants. Okay, and the next slide we just to show some of the people that have been influential and have been helpful to me. So some there are Filipino scientists, both Filipino scientists and botanists, taxonomists, that in one way or another have helped me, have influenced me in my career as a botanist, as a field biologist, and as a conservationist. So first and foremost, my academic supervisor mentor, Dr. Giuseppe Alejandro, siya po talaga yung nag-recruit sa akin to become a botanist, to work with plants for my master's and PhD. Also, zoologists like Dr. Jesmos and the late Dr. Danny Balete, they have also helped me. Um, they they have joined, or they have asked me to join their field works, as well as listen to their advices for sure during small talks or conversations about biodiversity conservation. Botanists or renowned botanists like Dr. Edwina Fernando, academician Vic Amoroso, also our speaker later, Dr. Rubite, and also Mr. and Mrs. Doctors Madulid, Domingo Madulid, and our um, my former uh, boss or department chair in UST, Dr. Rose Madulid. Okay. Also a taxonomist and also a great mentor, Dr. Dogma, who is also a mycologist and a taxonomist, as well as the late Sir Leonard Co, who are these people, as I have said, they have been helpful, instrumental, and inspired me to pursue a career in botany. Next slide, please. Now, my current affiliation, I've also been as a biodiversity conservationist, as an advocate of biodiversity conservation, I'm also happy to be part of the Philippine Plant Conservation Committee, or the PPCC, of the DNR BMB. So this is the group that uh, is composed of plant experts and also policymakers, that is organized by DNR to formulate um, the Philippine Plant Conservation Strategy and Action Plan. They are also the group that provides scientific advice to DNR in the field of taxonomy, ecology, conservation biology, and sustainable utilization of Philippine plants. At the moment, although pandemic, hindi pa kami nagkaroon ng regular meetings, but one of our goal now is to update the threatened or the national list of threatened plants in the Philippines. Now, the other picture is the one of the meetings of the Philippine Native Plants Conservation Society Incorporated, where I'm a member, and also I've been an officer. So they also um, advocates for the conservation of native plants, and this was founded also by the late Sir Leonard Coe. Next slide, please. Now, also, what interests me a lot during field works is discovering new species every time we go out in the field. And all the hardships in doing field work, climbing mountains, exploring the forest, will be all worth it every time we were able to document new species of plants. And these are just some of the new species that we have described in the last 6 years, until since I came back from Germany after my PhD. So next slide, please. Some of them are from the family Rubiaceae. The most recent one is this Timonius eremiticus, which was recently published last August in Blumea. So this new species is from Mount Pulgar in Palawan. And the specific epithet, the eremiticus, is from the Latin word which means living like a hermit. Okay, so it was found to be growing in a secluded habitat within an urbanized area sa Puerto Princesa. So the main author of this new species, Mr. Jason Chavez, is currently in Germany pursuing also his PhD. The other species is the Mycetia, previous slide po. Mycetia sudixiana. So this one is a new species from Parana, Samar. The specific epithet was dedicated to Miss Sudixi Tandang, the wife of the first author, Mr. Danilo Tandang, who is also affiliated in the Botany Division of the National Museum. Next slide, please. So this two new species of Neonuclea, ito yung similar with the flowers of Nuclea, yung mga bangkal. But this one is Neonuclea. So this was described, okay, yung viridiflora, Neonuclea viridiflora, was described from this. The collection, or the plant was collected from Taft, Eastern Samar, and the specific epithet of this plant, the viridiflora, is or was based on the light green coloration of the flowers of this species. Now the other species described, okay, the Neonuclea conicalicina, is from Carmen, Cebu. And the specific epithet, the conicalicina, was based on the calyx lobes of this plant. So the shape of the calyx lobes of this species is connate at the bases. Okay, and when they detach, the shafts detach together. Okay, when the corollas of the plant is mature. Now, the first authors of this new species, Mr. George Ordas, okay, this was his um, topic for his master's thesis also, and he's currently now a faculty member at the University of Santo Tomas. Next slide, please. Now, aside from the family Rubiaceae, we also have described new species for the family Zingiberaceae. Okay, and together with my undergraduate students and Mr. Docot, Rudolph Docot, who is celebrating his birthday today. Happy birthday, Duke. So, this new species of ginger, Vanneverbergia zingiberaceae, is the third species of Vanneverbergia that was described. Okay, yung isang species nasa Taiwan, we have two here in the Philippines, and this Vanneverbergia rubrobracteata was named after its red floral bracts. Okay, and this was collected in um, Antique, but this can also be found in the provinces of Ifugao, Quezon, and Negros. Next slide, please. Now, aside from Vanneverbergia, also Mr. Docot, my master's graduate student, resurrected the genus Adelmeria. Okay, so this genus was transferred before to Alpinia, and after the or thesis of Rudolph, he was able to reinstate the the genus and revised the genus and described four new species of Adelmeria endemic to the Philippines. Okay, so these are Adelmeria leonardoi, so from Dingalan, Aurora, and named after the botanist Leonard Coe. Then we also have Adelmeria isarogensis, named after the type locality Mount Isarog. Next slide, please. We also have the Drinocula from Mount Banahaw. So the specific epithet of this plant was derived from the Greek words dikranos, meaning fort, and kilos, meaning lip. So has forked lip, as shown in the picture. Also, Adelmeria undulata from Mount Mingan in Aurora. So the specific epithet refers to its coarsely undulated leaf margin. So if you notice the leaves of this species, so doon po binase yung kanyang specific epithet. So yes, all the hardships, the sweats, the tears, and the buwis buhay fieldworks of my students has resulted to um, discovering this new species, and it is really worth all of these difficulties in the field or hardships in the field, okay, because we were able to collect, document new species of plants, okay, in the mountain or area that we explore. Next slide, please. Next, I'm a botanist because I also love traveling. So traveling is life. So if my friends don't ask me how are you, they ask where are you. So there was also a time in my career that umuwi lang ako sa bahay to get new sets of clothes and then um, field na ulit. Okay, so it was um, part of my journey as a botanist. So traveling is life. Okay, next slide, please. But fieldwork is lifer. So these are some of the pictures during our fieldwork. So ito yung aming or million stars accommodation. So sa gabi, tingala ka lang, you have million stars, hindi lang 5-star. Okay? So we also do several collections of and processing of specimens in the field, um, working with my students or doing field works with my students. Okay? So it's not yung mga guide usually nagtataka sila because they would only, for example, they would only take it would only take them 1 hour to hike or to go to the peak. Pero um, pagkas kami ang kasama nila, sobrang um, bagal. We do pictures, a lot of pictures in the field. Next slide, please. So these are just some of the photos that I have have been captured during our field works. We lagi kaming nadudulas, definitely. There was one time my student had to walk barefoot kasi um, yung bumigay na yung kanyang sapatos and it was very slippery. Okay, so I was tagged as the advisor who had always a buwis buhay field works with my students. Okay, so next slide, please. Yes, these are some photos of our expedition in Silago Southern Leytes. You can see during these field works, dalawa lang kami uh, na babae in the entire team, and during those times you have to also be one of the boys. Okay, so you have to carry all the things that you need to carry, as well as to ride the back of the truck, okay, to set up to look for the things that we have to carry. So you have to carry some of the things we have to bring in the campsite. Next slide, please. Next slide. Yes. Aside from the local travel, I was opportunity to visit international um, places for as part of my dissertation, and this one sa letter I na tayo. I have two word that has a letter I on it, so I can insert Ixora. Okay, so the main so this was the main focus of my dissertation, my work. So I studied the different species of santan of Ixora in the Philippines. Next slide, please. So as part of the my study of Ixora, I was able to um, describe three new species that I named after my professor, my my father, and also Ixoras laguensis. So these were the three new species that I was able to describe. Next slide, please. Then teaching vocation. So I, as a teacher, I can say that this is the most influential vocation. So sorry, but I'm a teacher, so I have to agree with that. And these are just some of the photos of my graduate students, okay, in the graduate school. So these are the topics they were doing or they have done in during or under my supervision. So si Ney, si Carl doing a momum. Ney was one of the students who worked with us in Siargao. Carl Domingo is working on a momum, and floristic vegetation in Homonhon Island is the dissertation of um, Roan. We have Sarah who worked on Tarena, Philippine Tarena, the macrophytes of Taal, okay, by Trish, and also my first graduate student, Duke, who worked on Adelmeria. Next slide, please. And here are the photos of some of my graduate students. Next slide, please. And in the university, we had this Tamashan Angiosperm Phylogeny and Barcoding group. So since I went back from my PhD in Germany, so ito na po kadami yung mga students that have worked with us together with Dr. Alejandro under the top BG. So they all worked with um, Philippine flora. Okay? So, although pakonti sila kasi nga because of the K to 12, we had lesser sections of biology students. And also, this year, we had only one section. So, we are working with pairs to partnerships lang. So, also walang field work for this academic year. Next slide, please. And the last letter, we have letter A, which of Plantita, we have awards and recognitions. And I have to quote one of the outstanding young scientists when she said that awards are confirmation that I am doing something right. And I have to agree with her because, next slide, please. It's when you are recognized or being rewarded with your works, nakakataba ng puso, and it adds up to the um, motivation to work more and to work harder. And lastly, last slide, please. I also have to say that my being a botanist, lakwatserang botanist or field biologist, I was able to meet my husband during one of my field works. He used to work in Pambi in Davao Oriental, and at the moment we are blessed with two children, si Katleya at si Kathleen. Okay, so with that, I have to end my presentation. So thank you very much for listening. I hope that I have shared with you, I have inspired some of our audiences here to also work with plants. So matatapos din tong pandemya na to, we can also still go out and explore more of our remaining biodiversity, particularly our Philippine flora. Thank you very much for listening, and stay safe and healthy, everyone.
Right. Thank you so much, Ma'am Ses. I was so inspired too, and a bit of kilig at the end of your presentation when you show us your awards and your family. Thank you. Truly, we are actually they are the legit giants of botanists and the legit plantitas, no? Being baliw to science and baliw to research is really, we need that. We need that in the type of society that we have now, in this time of pandemic. Diba? These are the people that inspires others to actually do more work and share something to our biodiversity and to our culture as a Filipino. Okay? So for those who have questions po, please, you may put your questions and drop them in the chat box. We'll have the time a bit later to address them to our uh, speakers. All right? So, to move forward, the last but definitely not the least of our presenter, I would like to introduce to you Dr. Rosario Rubite, which is a professor in the College of Arts and Sciences in the Department of Biology, University of the Philippines, Manila. Dr. Rubite has received recognitions for a lot of her researchers. Um, she is actually the sole authority of the genus Begonia in the country. Begonia is a widely loved ornamental plant that is currently has various taxonomic problems, and her data on Philippine begonias generated not only morphological but included molecular evidences for some changes in of begonia in section Variandra. So as of now, from 40 species, we have now a total of 70 species belongs to the section, of which 69 species are endemic to the Philippines. As we declare the Philippines, the country, as the center of biodiversity. And Ma'am Rubite is actually um, the one who should be thankful for actually working with begonias. To date, she has written more than 25 publications and discovered and named more than, I think, 25 new species of begonia is in the country. So some of her ongoing research is the together with Ma'am Ses, I guess, is the assessment, inventory, and of biological flora and fauna of the mangroves in Del Carmen, Siargao. And of course, she continues to amaze us with her work in begonias of the Philippines. So, without further ado, let us now listen to the talk of Dr. Rosario Rubite. Take away, ma'am.
Good morning.
Morning po.
Okay, so today I'm going to share with you our research on Philippine begonia. My research on Philippine begonia started with my PhD dissertation. I've long been stuck at the associate professor rank, so I wanted to have a PhD. So late na nung nag-decide ako na kailangan ko mag-PhD, and so I pursued a PhD, and the dissertation is on Philippine begonia. So why choose begonia? It's very easy to recognize begonia in the field. Even if it is not flowering, you can recognize it because of this asymmetric leaves. Asymmetric meaning the two lobes are not mirror images. So it has a larger lobe and a smaller lobe. So I studied the Philippine begonia because number one, they are known only from protologs. In fact, let me put this down. In fact, the only comprehensive work on Philippine begonia was published more than 100 years ago. So Merrill published at the Philippine Journal of Science in 1911 59 species of Philippine begonia, 58 of which are endemic to the Philippines. So next, as most of our native plants, the flora of the Philippines is a hotspot of diversity, including the begonias. The genus Begonia is considered as the fifth largest plant genus, including as much as about 2,000 known species now, classified in 70 sections. This is the pantropical distribution of begonias occurring in the tropical regions in almost all of the continents except Australia. So according to the checklist of Southeast Asian begonias by Dr. Mark Hughes, the Philippine begonia is classified in three sections. The first section, Petermania, include the upright begonias with 63 species, while the rhizomatous begonias belong to the section Diploclinium with 37 species, while the section Barriandra is represented only with one species. So I did not choose the section Petermania because I might not be able to graduate with that large number of species. I cannot do a dissertation on just one species, so I left with the section Diploclinium with 37 species. So the third reason why Diploclinium is that it is considered polyphyletic. It is taxonomically very important to study. It is considered as one of the most problematic sections in the genus Begonia. So in December 2004, I defended my dissertation proposal at the De La Salle University entitled Systematic Studies on Philippine Begonia, section Diploclinium. So first, I had to study the types of begonias. I am fortunate that the types are still intact at the Philippine National Museum. Why? Because we know that during the World War, the herbarium housed at the Bureau of Science was totally burned. So lahat ng types natin nasunog. But then the types of begonias were loaned by a German botanist, Edgar Irmscher, during the war. Kaya they were saved. So when they returned to the Philippines, I was able to study the types. Okay? So studying the types is very important. Why? Because, for example, here in the holotype of Begonia hernandoides, you will see the appearance not only of the plant, but you can gather a lot of information from the herbarium and the field sheets. No? So It is found in Claveria, Cagayan. It was discovered in March 1909 by Maximo Ramos. So when I go into the field, I would need this data. Why? Because as you see in the herbarium specimen, it has already fruits in March 1909. So I have to collect it. I have to go into the field prior to March 9 so that I can see the flowers, not just the fruits. So together with my advisor, Dr. Domingo Madulid, who was the curator of the Botany Division then of the Philippine National Museum, we borrowed herbarium specimens. We loaned herbarium specimens from different institutions. So we loaned from the herbarium of UP Los Baños, UP Diliman, from the Leiden Herbarium, from the Smithsonian Herbarium, from the New York Botanical Garden, and from the Royal Botanic Garden of Kew. So we studied the herbarium specimens. Okay? So once equipped with the knowledge based on herbarium specimens and protolog, I must secure the necessary permits. And this is not an easy work, okay? I think most of you will agree with me, especially if the area that you need to visit is a protected area. Example, Puerto Princesa. Okay? I know that Palawan, we all know that Palawan is the last frontier. So I suspect a lot of begonias would be undiscovered there. Okay? So I have to study the place. But it wasn't very easy. First, I had to secure permit from the local Puerto Princesa Protected Area Management Board. So it is a meeting that I need to attend and defend, present the proposal. I thought it would end there and I would have a permit already, but no. I have go to the next level. I have to present to the mayor with the Palawan City Council. And I thought I'm finished there. No, I have to go to a next level. Another level would be the Palawan Council for Sustainable Development headed by the governor. So imagine these three different meetings at different times of the year. That would mean three airfares, and that would mean very expensive. Okay? So that was just in Puerto Princesa. So if you go to another municipality of Palawan, another round of those series of permits again. So I did it all over again with El Nido. Okay? But now the PCSD or the Palawan Council for Sustainable Development, they love me. Why? Because I always return to them and give to them my publications, and they are very happy that most of their plants now are labeled, named, and are now working on the conservation and preservation of these plants. Okay, so I started my field work in 2005, and it took me 5 years to collect the begonias. And the collection was from Batanes to Basilan because it's Philippine begonia. At the beginning, I had only my salary as a teacher. It took me that long. Why? Because I would be able to go on field work only on semestral break. That would be October, November, or Christmas break, December and January. So uh, I had to search for piso fares of the Cebu Pacific so that I can avail of this low price for my air tickets. So at times, the land travel would also take me that long. In fact, when I went to Biliran Island, I took the Roro because I don't have that much money. So it took me 36 hours. But navigating the forest is much more harder. So I would usually go to the type localities by myself, and once arriving at the town, I would ask help from the barangay chairman and inform them about my research. and he would always help me and offer a barangay tanod or any barangay official would help me. Usually, the 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 guide would also own a motorcycle, so I would have a guide at the same time a ride. Okay, but most often I would hire a habal-habal. So can you see the terrain of the road going up the mountains? At the beginning of my journey or of our trip, at the base of the mountain, I will always pray that, Lord, please show me the begonias up there. But going up, my prayer would already change into, please, Lord, help me go home safely without cuts and wounds. So I have my guide who would always bring bolo or sharp weapon or knife that would cut the many leaves, trees, or small plants, so to make or to pave the way into the forest to create a path for us to go into the habitats of the begonia. You see, begonias are deep into the forest. They prefer deeply shaded, moist habitat. So I had to go to riverine forests. At times, I have bodyguards. For example, in Apayao, uh, my contact person in Puntol, Apayao is the officer of the tourism, and he said he cannot allow me to go into the forest without a bodyguard. So I had a bodyguard there equipped, and there is Begonia payawensis. In Mindanao, the same is true. A family of my former student accommodated me in Lanao, and when we went up the Salicata forest, we have a barangay of relatives of the family who are well equipped, and I was really very thankful of the family. But most of the time, I would walk. I would walk from the base of the mountain going up into the interior to search for the begonias. Okay, there are times that we need to go to islands. Thank you to my collaborators. There is Dani Tandang of the Philippine National Herbarium. Sometimes we use bamboo rafts, but most of the time we have to cross rivers without bridges. Again, thank you to another collaborator, John Ray. I saw your name. You are there, John Ray Calyado. Danny is there. Sometimes I will also do rappelling just to reach the area where the begonia is. So here is my lady guide. The father is up there, and he created or he lowered this rope for us to reach the area of the begonias. Sometimes I need to walk through the prop roots of mangroves just to reach the rocks and boulders where the begonias are there at the opposite side. So I am fortunate that I had collaborators later on. For students who are starting with your graduate studies, huwag mahihiya. Mag-communicate sa mga scientists. For example, I just sent an email to this man. You see, this man is working on the begonias of China, Indochina, Southeast Asia. So I wrote him an email asking for literatures on Chinese begonia because he worked on the section Diploclinium, and I asked help because I told him I cannot afford the dollars that would enable me to buy or secure the publication. So he immediately answered my letters or my emails and sent me reprints, 10 reprints of his begonia publications. And so that started the collaboration. We had a collaboration, and he is from the Academia Sinica Biodiversity Research Center. So I have also collaborators from the Royal Botanic Garden, Edinburgh, Dr. Marcuse, from the French Center of the National Scientific Research, Dr. Patrick Black. So with Dr. Madulid, the first expedition with my collaborators from Taiwan started in 2006. So we searched the begonias of northern Luzon. So we went to Benguet, Mountain Province, Ilocos, Cagayan. Later that year, we went to southern Luzon with another set of botanists from Taiwan, together with Sir Tito, the curator now of the Philippine National Herbarium. So we went to Albay, Camarines, Norte, Sur, Sorsogon. So what did my study on the Philippine begonia find out? Okay, so out of the 37, I rediscovered in the wild 31 species, and I found out based on morphological characters that the Philippine begonia species of the section Diploclinium are homogeneous, meaning they share common characters. They are rhizomatous, so they have these long horizontal stems. They are lithophytic, they grow on crevices of rocks. They have this extensive root system that would hold them tenaciously on these rocks. You see, there is no soil. They are holding into the rocks just by their root system. And you will find begonias not on the top of rocks, but at the vertical face of rocks. This section is also characterized by the presence of a pair of stipules at the base of the petiole. These stipules are free and persistent. And of course, they are well characterized by the asymmetric leaves of various shapes, various color patterns, both adaxial and abaxial side. These are the basifix leaves. They have also peltate leaves. Then the inflorescence is axillary and cyme. Begonia nigritarum, I believe, is the oldest begonia species of the country. For the flowers are unisexual, meaning the male flower is separated from the female flower, and it is protandrous. The male flower opens ahead of the female flower. So the perianth is not differentiated into sepals and petals. Instead, they form the same color. Usually, the perianth, which we call tepals, consists of the outer pair, oriented top and bottom. These are rounded and larger, while the inner pair would be narrower and smaller. Then the numerous stamens would usually form a short staminal tube. The ovary is inferior and it is also characterized by wings. The style is divided into three. And if you cut the cross section, you will see the three carpels and the axillary placentation, and the placentae is fork or bifid. And of course, the fruit is a capsule hanging from a very thin pedicel. So a slight drop or just a drop of rainwater would shake this capsule and disperse the seeds in that area only. So based on my studies, the Philippine begonia section Diploclinium species form a homogeneous group. So comparing with the type species of the section Diploclinium, Begonia grandis from China, it's characterized by the following. It is an upright stem compared to the rhizomatous horizontal Diploclinium of the Philippines. Its stipules fall early compared to our persistent stipules. Its tepals would be 2 only, while for us, 2 plus 2 or 4. And grandis is characterized by the presence of bulbils. Bulbils are axillary bulbs which can develop into new plants. I've never seen this in Philippine begonia. So clearly, the Philippine begonia section Diploclinium species are different from the type species of section Diploclinium. So together with the representative of section Bariandra, the Philippine begonia section Diploclinium species is now newly assigned to section Bariandra. So that is morphological evidence. We also have molecular evidence. The Bayesian analysis of nuclear ribosomal ITS DNA sequences supports a monophyletic group of begonia section Diploclinium from the Philippines. So these are, in yellow box, are the Philippine begonia Diploclinium species. All the other non Philippine Diploclinium species are scattered in throughout the tree. And the type species Begonia grandis does not share affinity with the Philippine Diploclinium species. So if we enlarge the clade, uh, the representative of section Bariandra is nested here in the clade. So this is now the Philippine begonia that we recircumscribe as section Bariandra. So now I'm going to share with you uh, our recent work on Palawan. I chose Palawan because a lot of people now are interested in Palawan. Wait. So, before my dissertation, there were how many species? 6 species are of begonia are already known. These were discovered and named by Merrill. But after my dissertation, here are the publications on Palawan begonias. So now there are a total of 26 known begonias from Palawan. So we rediscovered the species discovered by Merrill, like the Begonia palawanensis in Puerto Princesa. From Coron Island, this is a very beautiful uh, begonia, highly protected by the Tagbanwa of the Coron Island. They are very protective there. Also in Coron Island is a very different and distinct begonia because it is characterized by its woody stem, unlike the herbaceous stem of the other begonias. This is also uh, growing near the shoreline, so it is exposed under the scorching heat and it is splashed with seawater. During summer, this will dry up and what remains is just the woody stem. Another rediscovery, suborbiculata woody from Malampaya. In 2010, we published 5 new species, but this publication was based primarily on herbarium specimen. Okay, so but later on, after field works, we rediscovered this 5 new species in the wild. So this is Begonia aclibis from Mount Mantalingahan, Begonia cleopatrae, Begonia gutierrezi. I need to mention that the collector is also one of the chief of the Botany Division. Hermes Gutierrez was a former chief of the Botany Division of the Philippine National Herbarium. He's the collector of this plant from the Tabon Cave Complex. So this is my begonia. My collaborator, Dr. Mark Hughes, named it after me from Busuanga Island. Dr. Patrick Black, a botanist. I didn't know him before, but he sent me a picture of a begonia. And immediately I told him, where did you get this begonia? Because it's a very different begonia. Unlike the other begonias with ovate leaves, this begonia is characterized by spatulate leaves. So he is one of the leading botanists at the French Center for National Research. And I told him if he wants us to study, so we studied the plant and name it after him. Okay, so this is from El Nido, Palawan. He discovered it, but we are responsible for the publication of the name. So this man is very happy with the publication. He is a very rich man. He invented the concept of the vertical garden. There is one of his vertical gardens, and it's very expensive. So during our field work, uh, by the way, he rewarded the team by a trip to Palawan or an expedition to Palawan. So we went back to the type locality of Begonia Blanqui, and this is my first time to drink champagne in the wild. So we went to Bulalakaw Falls, where the type locality of Blanqui, and we poured wine into a leaf of Begonia Blanqui. So he rewarded me with a trip to Paris. I made a pilgrimage to Lourdes. In Paris, I did not only see the world's largest herbarium, the National Natural History Museum with more than 10 million specimens, but I also see an evidence of his vertical garden. This is the Quai Branly Museum of Paris. This consists of about 150 different species of plants, of about 150,000 individual plants in Paris, France. Okay, so after our Palawan expeditions, we published the Puerto Princesa Subterranean River three new species. So this is Puerto Princesa Subterranean River National Park, and it is a very famous park. It receives about 500,000 of guests annually. That's why in the American Begonia Society conference that we attended last Saturday, Dr. Mark Hughes claimed that this Begonia tarao, is considered as one of the world's most photographed plant of the world. Redundant yata. Okay. Why most photographed? Because all the guests would always make a selfie of the entrance, and so there is the begonia. So that is begonia tarao. Tarao means the limestone where the plant is growing. We also named a begonia after my collaborator, Dr. Mark Hughes. And the third begonia from Puerto Princesa, we named after the indigenous people of Palawan, the Tagbanwas. Next, in 2018, we published 5 new species, including the famous begonias of El Nido. If you've been to El Nido, you wouldn't miss the plants growing at the rocks of at the crevices of rocks of the different islands. And so similarly, this is splashed with seawater. So this is Begonia El Nidoensis. So after the publication of this, I went back to El Nido and I talked to the El Nido Council and requested them to make this plant an icon of conservation for El Nido. And happily they did. So this is now an icon for conservation of the municipality of El Nido. So other Palawan species that we discovered, including one that we named after a collaborator from the Palawan State University, Ma'am Beth Heronilia, uh, the Begonia kinkialata because of the five wings. So it's quite different from the other begonias because of the five wings, and the abaxial wing is cuculate. Tenebractiata because of those hyaline bracts. This is an additional begonia in the Tabon Cave, the Begonia tabonensis. So a recent discovery in Palawan is Begonia by Jenny, which is named after Jonah Van by Jenny, a conservationist who would really help in the protection and conservation of Palawan flora and fauna. So here are some other begonias that we name after Filipino botanists. Of course, my mentor, my advisor, we named Begonia madulidi. This is from Camarines Sur. My friend, Dani Tandang, we named Begonia tandangi. And for the curator of the botany division now, Begonia Tito Evangeliste. Another one is for my colleague from the University of the Philippines, Baguio, Teodora Balangkod. We named Begonia Balangkodiay. So I would like to thank the so many Filipino families who have helped me in my search for begonias, who have accommodated me in their homes, in my search for the begonias. I would like to thank the Philippine National Museum for inviting me. Thank you to everyone. Thank you, JD.
Right. Thank you so much, ma'am. Can we share? Right. We are truly inspired by your talk po. The Philippines is really in depth with your work on Philippine begonias. Imagine you're from 6 species in Palawan. We have what 4 times more than 4 times of that because of him. That's just for Palawan. How can we count for the others that you work with? In your journey in all those species that you actually described and mentioned, we felt that we are also with you towards your journey, and there is really a need, for these young people to follow such footsteps. Pag, paano po ba maging kayo? How to be you po? Parang gano'n. You three are the heroines of Philippine botanists. So, thank you for your contribution. I just want to mention, Dr. Evangelista is currently indisposed. So, medyo hindi po siya present sa ating event. But, rest assured that everything will be laid down to him, and he's actually very happy with the speakers that we actually have right now. Regards din po to on behalf of my colleagues, Sir Danny Tandang and John Ray and the other here, we'd like to thank you. Okay, so may we request everyone just for a moment to have our screen on before we continue with the open forum so that we can have a great photo capture. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much. Wait, check. Okay na ba to?
Okay, wait lang po. Antayin lang po natin yung iba, nag-on pa sila ng camera nila. Okay. So, I think everyone's ready. Show your happiest smile. Okay. 1, 2, 3. For a while. Okay. Second page. Smile. Okay. Next. Okay. Oops. Okay.
All right.
Okay, done. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. So for our questions, I guess we have some amount of time to actually read them. Okay, first question is to all, this is from Abigail Garino, if you're here. To all speakers, how were you able to find the mentor that honed you to become who you are now? What can you advise early career women in botany who are still trying to find their niche? Ayun. Maybe we can have one, Tess.
Hi. Yeah. First, of course, as a potential scientist, you have to consider your interest also. Although on my part, I was not initially I was not interested in freshwater ecosystems nor with microalgae, but because of the mentoring of Dr. Velasquez, I learned to love the organism as well as the freshwater ecosystems. And if you have found your interest, don't be ashamed to approach your potential mentor, and you have to show your potential mentor that you deserve to be guided. So you have to also be what uh, show the mentor that you are also very, it's a term I forgot, very much interested and willing to learn. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Any other tips for young researchers like us? Ma'am Chit po.
I agree with Des, no? You really have to prove yourself kasi uh, marami ka na ring mga competitors ngayon kaya kailangan magpakitang gilas ka talaga. Pagkatapos sabi ko nga kanina, wag mahihiya. You just make correspondence and they are of course they would always be willing to help. That's
Okay.
all.
Thank you po. Thank you po. Other questions po. What challenges have you encountered being a woman in pursuing botany? Maybe we can ask Ma'am Ces to
Yeah, oh my gosh. Well,
see.
the three of us are always doing field work. And you know how it is. When I was younger, you had your monthly period. So how do you manage that kind of scenario when you're in the field? Sometimes you're alone together with all the men in the field. So you have to prove to them that you can really walk in the river system. You can climb also the cliffs. And well, considering our tradition naman, the Filipino tradition, they're very helpful to you. I remember when I went up the Agos River in Quezon. I was only one and it was stormy. And they were so nice to me that I had to stay in one tent. And if I had to take a bus because we were in the field for almost 4 days, someone was really guiding me so that I can do my personal necessities and take a bath. So those are challenges. And then of course later when I had my children and breastfeeding, you have to go to the we were doing studies in the Bulacan River systems. So, I had to bring bottles and during lunchtime I had to express milk and put this in a container. And then by the end of the day, if you don't stay overnight in the area, I would hurry up. No, after cleaning the boat, I have to hurry up because my children and my husband they're waiting for me. So those are challenges that women encounter, especially if you have your family. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Ma'am Ces, you'd like to add something po?
Yes, I have to agree with Ma'am Tess. the challenges during field works, there would be times that we have to join group of uh, men. So we also have to be one of the boys during field works. So we also have to prove to them that kung kaya nilang umakyat ng bundok, tumawid ng ilog, kaya din namin. So minsan there were also times that we were or I was discriminated by some of the field guides that they question kung kaya ko bang akyatin, malayo daw, mataas, matarik. So those are some of the challenges nga being a woman in the field of botany kapag nasa field ka.
All right, thank you po. So there's actually a lot of challenges, personal, physical abilities of women. But right now in this world where, equality between men and women are being um, improved or experienced, marami na po na mga botanists yan, katulad ng mga mga participants natin, na really are inspired to do such things na previously more men lang yung mga gumagawa. Alright, we have some few more. For those others po na we cannot accommodate the question because of the time, we will send these questions to our speakers and we will email the answers to you for for their feedback. Um, this question is from Sherwin Ramos. How I wish we can specify the new discovered native plants for landscape designs in our gardens and parks. Ay, hindi pala siya question. It's a reaction na yung kanyang native plants for landscape and designs in our gardens and parks. This is for Ma'am Rubite. Why is the caladium more popular than the begonias, Dr. Rubite? It's what we see in the plantitos and plantitas.
It's because of this social media. So yun yung parati nilang nakikita, hindi sila aware, maaring hindi nila kilala itong mga mas magaganda pa nating mga halaman, no? So I would just like to add something to that reaction earlier na it is possible, no? Halimbawa in Ilocos, again through our advice to the local government, the Begonia hernandoides now is used to decorate the highways along the road of Pagudpod, Ilocos Norte. So possible yan as long as you inform the community. So yan din ang isa sa advice ko sa mga budding scientists. Balikan ninyo itong mga communities kasi sila ay dapat din nating tulungan. So lahat ng mga new species ibinabalik ko sa mga communities para ma-inform sila kasi ito ang magagamit nila na magiging icon ng conservation. So yun nga, yung Begonia hernandoides, it's growing robustly along the roads of Pagudpod. Near the beaches yan, ha? Kaya maganda naman ang tubo ng Begonia hernandoides dyan.
Okay, thank you po. I think further information dissemination, we need that also. DNR, Environmental Management Bureau. So people now, the budding plantitos and plantitas in the Philippines will know which plant supposedly is actually are present and supposedly be planted in their particular location or locality. Okay, thank you po. This question is for Ma'am Tess. Can we still plant the nilad in the Pasig and Manila Bay? Are these places too dirty? You're muted, ma'am, I guess.
Can you repeat the question, JD?
Can we still plant the nilad in the Pasig and Manila Bay, or are these places too dirty?
Um, I think there are also yung condition ngayon nung ating Pasig River. I'm not sure with the ecology of this nilad, pero kasi pag meron pa mga ganitong species, it is an indication that the environment is still healthy. So I'm not sure if they will thrive in the environment that has lots of garbage or has not yet been rehabilitated.
All right.
Can I add?
Apo, yes, ma'am. Ma'am.
In UP Manila, since we are in the area, many years ago, I don't remember the mayor if it was Mayor Lim. We submitted a proposal to Mayor Lim, trying to convince him that we want to replant Manila Bay with Nilad. You see, Manila was named after the plant. That's the origin of the place, Nilad. So we wanted to replant, but you see, Nilad is extinct in the wild. But if you go to European botanical gardens, I have seen Nilad in the Royal Botanic Garden, Edinburgh. So we can always ask our collaborators for seedlings, seeds probably to start the growth of this plant again. But then the proposal was not interesting because maybe it will not generate money, or I don't know, it wasn't welcome by the mayor then. Pero siguro now that there is this rehabilitation of Manila Bay, after some time maybe we can look again to that proposal.
Thank you po. Ma'am Tess, Ma'am Dr. Perez, would you like to
There's in the chat kasi someone said that there's nilad actually in the Intramuros. It got lost. Intramuros area. So maybe we can study further the ecology of nilad with respect to the type of water quality that so it can thrive. Because right now we still have some issues on the heavy metals, the pesticides in Pasig River coming from Laguna Lake or coming from Marikina River. So maybe it can be revived, but there has to be a better water quality so it can grow abundantly. Thank you.
All right, thank you po. Okay, for the other questions that we will not accommodate here live in for their answers, we will send and collate the questions and we will send it to our speakers for them to answer. Okay. Uh, sige po. I think we have here Dr. Evangelista. Na, sir, you'd like to say something?
Hi, Dr. Evangelista. Hi, Tito.
Hi, can you hear me now?
Yes
Yes,
po.
sir.
Okay. First of all, salamat sa inyo lahat. Uh, I'm sorry I could not really be very, I could not be present the whole time here kasi medyo I'm not feeling well at the moment. Kaya I asked JD to be the one to do the coordination and everything like that. First of all, Tess, thank you. Cecil, thank you. And of course, to Dr. Rubite.
Hi,
Ano
Chid.
may litrato ko doon. I can't imagine myself how many years was that? 10 years ago. May book pa ako noon. So, I'm So salamat sa inyo ng marami dahil talagang it was really very successful. Nakita ko nga ang daming nakikinig sa atin, and with the number of messages from the chat box, I know you'll be receiving some emails too regarding some of the questions. No, it was really very informative. Talagang wag sanang ma-extinct ang botany. Yan ang aming dinadasal dahil wala na ring tao kami sa botany. Ilan na lang ang maiiwan. We are really in need of botanists like you. So it's a good thing that JD is around and John Ray, Mike, Kat, and Isai, who will be doing the dons of the Philippine National Herbarium. Remember, ilang buwan na lang ako and I'll soon be retiring too. Kaya all of us are very happy with these guys. And thank you very much. Hindi ako na maraming sasabihin sa inyo. Nagpapasalamat na lang ako sa inyong tulong and information that you have given to us. Thank you to all of you. And JD, maraming salamat for facilitating this activity. I know you did a lot of work here.
Thank you, sir.
Okay,
Thank you,
thank you very
Sir
much.
Tito.
Yeah, welcome.
All right. I
Sir
think
Tito.
thank you po. I think we have I Miss Carissa Balane who can give us some synthesis and the things that we have that lecturers have prepared for us. All right. Hi, Sai.
Hi, good morning everyone. So, I think itong part ko, magti-thank you na lang ako sa lahat ng nasa ating speakers. So, it's been a pleasure to be with you for the closing of this lecture. In behalf of Dr. Evangelista, nandiyan naman po pala siya. Ayan. First, I would like to thank our speakers, our amazing speakers, Dr. Perez, Dr. Moran, and Dr. Rubite. Thank you for spending your time with us for this lecture series. Indeed, makikita natin na yung role ng women in the field of botany, talagang makita natin na yung big role ng mga babae. So, it is really an honor for us to gather you all in this event. So maraming salamat po. I hope with the lectures and with the studies they have presented, I hope we have awakened the interest of the youth to pursue field of botany as their field of study. Ayun po. Let me also grab this opportunity na din to thank our colleagues from the National Museum Gender and Development Focal Point System, our colleagues from the Museum Services Division, from the ICT Division, of course, our directors, Dr. Labrador, Director Barnes, for supporting this activity. And of course, thank you to all the participants who have spent their time for this lecture series. So please stay tuned for other activities like this, especially for this month. This October is the Museum and Galleries Month, so please follow our social media pages for more updates. Ayun po. So again, thank you everyone for listening to this lecture series and stay safe po. Ayun, JD.
All right. Thank you so much, everyone. And we hope to see you in our next webinars for the celebration of Museum and Galleries Month this October. Thank you po. Thank you po, Ma'am Tess, Perez, Ma'am Chit.
Very much.
Thank you po,
Thank
Ma'am
you.
Rubite. Ma'am Ses, thank you po.
Everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thanks,
Thank you.
JD.
Thank you
Bye-bye.
po.
Hi, Cheat. Kamusta?
I will email you po yung sa documents pa pong medyo kailangan pa natin.
No problem. No worries.
Hello, Tess.
Hi, Cheat. Long time no see.
Nga.
Oo nga. Matagal na. Sorry, dito kami ulit nagkita ni Cheat.
3 na ang apo ko.
Ah!